Picture a person who seems to have mastered the art of living. They know how to speak truth without cruelty. They show courage without recklessness. They are generous but never foolishly extravagant. Being in their presence makes you feel inspired, as if you are witnessing a kind of harmony in human character. According to Aristotle, this is what it means to live a virtuous life. And for him, cultivating this balance was not just a nice ideal, it was the very key to human happiness and fulfillment. Now, many moral theories you might have heard about, like utilitarianism or Kant's categorical imperative, are all about rules, commands, or universal principles. They focus on what you should do. Aristotle takes a very different path. For him, the focus is not primarily on actions, but on the kind of person you become. If your character is noble, wise, and balanced, then good actions will naturally flow from that character. So, instead of memorizing rules, Aristotle tells us, become virtuous, and you won't need the rule book. You'll simply know how to act well in every circumstance. But this raises an important question. Why aim to be virtuous in the first place? For Aristotle, the answer lies in one of his most famous concepts, eudaimonia. This Greek word is often translated as flourishing, living well, or the good life. It is not just about feeling happy in the moment, but about realizing the full potential of being human. A virtuous life, Aristotle argues, is the only path that leads us there. To understand why virtue is so essential, Aristotle begins by asking, what makes something good? A knife is good if it cuts well because cutting is its function. A seed is good if it grows into a strong and healthy plant because that is its natural purpose. In the same way, human beings are good when they fulfill their proper function. But what makes humans unique? For Aristotle, it is our capacity for reason. We are the rational animal. This means that to live well, we must live in accordance with reason. Just as a musician perfects their craft by practicing the art of music, we must perfect our lives by practicing the art of reasoning well. To be human is to think, to deliberate, to choose, and to direct our desires and actions through rational judgment. This, Aristotle says, is our unique path to goodness. Aristotle describes virtue as a stable state of character, a habit that enables us to choose the right action, at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons. Virtue is not about occasional flashes of goodness, but about developing a deep and reliable character that consistently aims toward what is noble. At first, this might sound vague. How do we know what the right way is? How do we know when we've hit the mark? Aristotle's answer is subtle but powerful. Virtue always lies in balance, and this balance is known as the golden mean. According to Aristotle, every virtue is a midpoint between two extremes. On one side, we find deficiency, too little of something. On the other side, we find excess, too much. Both extremes are vices. True virtue exists in the middle, in the right measure, the harmony between deficiency and excess. Consider the example of courage. If a soldier refuses to fight out of fear, we call that cowardice, a deficiency of courage. But if another soldier charges blindly into battle without strategy or concern for survival, we call that recklessness, an excess of courage. The virtuous person, however, stands in the middle. They feel fear, as any human would, but they act with reason, assessing the situation and doing what bravery requires. Courage, then, is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act rightly in spite of it. Another example is honesty. Some people boast of being brutally honest, saying whatever comes to mind, with no regard for how it wounds others. Others avoid speaking the truth entirely, hiding facts that should be shared. Both of these are vices. The virtue of honesty lies between them. It means knowing when to speak the truth, when to stay silent, and how to deliver words with wisdom and compassion. True honesty does not crush the soul, but enlightens it. Now think about generosity. A miser refuses to share even when surrounded by need, while a spendthrift gives recklessly, harming themselves and perhaps even others. But the generous person finds the balance. They give when it is fitting to the right people in the right way. Their giving is not a reckless display, but an expression of care rooted in wisdom. Aristotle applies this framework to every aspect of life: temperance, justice, pride, friendship, even humor. Each virtue is the balance point between two harmful extremes, and this balance is not the same for everyone. For one person, moderation might mean resisting a second piece of cake. For another, it might mean resisting the whole cake. Virtue is always sensitive to the situation, and that's why Aristotle emphasizes that it requires wisdom and judgment. So, how do we actually become virtuous? Aristotle insists that virtue cannot be learned merely from books or lectures. You can't just memorize a list of do's and don'ts. Virtue, he says, is a habit. It is something you acquire through practice, like learning to play an instrument or mastering a sport. This kind of knowledge Aristotle called practical wisdom, the ability to navigate life well. It is closer to what we might call street smarts than abstract theory. And just like any skill, you develop it by doing it. By practicing honest speech, you become an honest person. By repeatedly choosing courageous actions, you cultivate the habit of courage. At first, these actions may feel forced, even unnatural, but over time, they sink into your character until they become effortless. Aristotle also emphasizes the role of moral exemplars, people who already live virtuously. We naturally admire such individuals, and by observing and imitating them, we train our own character. Think of a young musician watching a master performer. Imitation becomes the path to mastery. In the same way, finding mentors, role models, and communities of virtue help shape our own moral growth. Now, you might wonder, why bother with all this effort? Why practice, fail, and struggle to hit the mean? Aristotle's answer brings us back to eudaimonia. To live a flourishing life is to realize your fullest potential as a human being. This is not a life of easy pleasures, but a life of deep fulfillment. It is the joy of becoming excellent at the art of living. For Aristotle, eudaimonia is like the satisfaction of an athlete who has trained tirelessly, who has pushed past their limits, and who experiences the thrill of growth and mastery. It is not the fleeting pleasure of indulgence, but the lasting joy of achievement. A eudaimonistic life is one of striving, of stretching yourself toward virtue, of becoming the best version of yourself. This also means that a flourishing life includes struggle, disappointment, and even failure. But these are not setbacks to be feared. They are essential steps on the journey of growth. Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance, character grows stronger through challenges. Virtue shapes us into resilient people who can face life's difficulties with balance and strength. So, when Aristotle speaks of the golden mean, he is offering more than an abstract theory. He is giving us a roadmap for life. He reminds us that extremes, whether of excess or deficiency, lead us astray. Balance is the way of virtue, and by practicing this balance day after day, we slowly transform into people of wisdom, courage, honesty, and generosity. And what awaits us at the end of this path? Not mere survival, not mere pleasure, but eudaimonia, the flourishing life, the life well lived. Aristotle believed this is the highest good for human beings. It is not something handed to us, but something we achieve through effort, practice, and the cultivation of virtue. To live virtuously, then, is to become the best possible version of yourself. It is to live in harmony with your true nature as a rational and social being. It is to walk the path of balance, and in doing so, to discover the secret not only of moral goodness, but of true and lasting happiness.